All right, welcome back to Morning Live. And as I told you earlier, you can still be part of this conversation by sending questions to Mr. Eric Ngala, who is a HR practitioner. You want to talk about packaging yourself to a potential employer, the process itself actually, from packaging yourself, you being called for an interview, shortlisting, the interview session, regret, or maybe confirmation, how you can actually handle all these things. But first of all, Eric, good morning.
Morning, Nick. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir. Now, application. You've seen an advertisement, of course you've applied, but now there's a loophole as far as now the CV is concerned. Not so many of us know how to approach this because now we keep on sending the same CV all over and over again, blind applications. We just, for example, if it's we're addressing it to John, Mary has got maybe a CV or a cover letter addressed to John. Some sort of carelessness and ignorance also in this now. As someone who's been in the field for quite some time, maybe you can tell us, how should someone package his or actually him or herself for this?
Nick, CV writing is branding yourself for the marketplace. If your CV is not speaking to who you are, then definitely you're not going to get that job. And take, for example, a candidate is actually a product that has to be branded. So what's your packaging? The packaging starts with, how is your CV designed?
Yeah.
Is it speaking to the job that has been advertised?
Okay.
So the CV, for example, if this CV does not have even a white space, the spacing is very small. In between the lines is very small. How will someone read that CV? It shouldn't be too wide. It shouldn't be very narrow. And what's the font that you're using when you are writing your CV?
Okay.
Do you have spelling mistakes in your CV? It's sad that at times people even misspell their names.
Wow.
And they want to get a job.
Wow.
Who will give you that job? I mean, the people who actually interview or scan through your CVs, they need to be entertained. Let your CV be very representative. Let your CV be attractive. Package yourself so well. And by the way, every industry has some attributes that they want. Did you look through the job profile? And what attributes are they looking for? Then that means your CV is not supposed to be custom. It's supposed to be custom made. It's not supposed to be cast on stone. That the CV that you use in company X is the same one that you use in another company, is the same one you use for every industry across the world. No.
So modification of your CV to the specific industry.
Exactly.
Someone has applied for a job with the finance department, but has written, he's a good writer. He's also a good speaker. He's also a very good problem solver. You see now, this kind of so much into communication. When you see finance, they want the basics and facts of what you've done, the likes of the CPA, for example, and everything. Now, for example, now packaging to the specific job. How should people now approach this? Because you've mentioned a very important part whereby now you have to look at the requirements of that job. Then now translate these requirements to your CV.
It's called looking at the job attributes. So when you look at the job attributes and then you ask yourself, so how then do I position myself to the employer? And then you look at the job and compare yourself. Remember, at that time you also have competition. You're not the only applicant in this case. So if your application comes through, number one, your CV is not making sense to me. You have never updated your CV. You just throw it away. You throw it around every now and then you see any job application or any job advert, you just say, you forward it. There's no subject to that job. Who will know? For a company that actually has or is receiving lots and lots of CVs, how do you expect them to just decide that, oh, by the way, this CV is supposed to be going for HR or finance without having the subject clearly marked? Because most jobs are advertised and actually they have they request for titles, they request for specific what I call specific codes. So if you don't use the right job code, how will this interviewer or the person screening through the CVs decide where to place your CV? Listening to instructions.
Very interesting. Now, the application process, of course, you've now packaged the CV very well. Now it's there's always a problem with the referees. You know, people are from different backgrounds.
Yes.
And trust me, some referees, maybe you've worked under for quite some time, and you left under some very funny circumstances, or maybe in a good way, depending on how you left the organization or your previous workplace. What can you maybe tell us about the referees? Do you choose your best referees, or maybe do you choose those guys maybe you've brushed shoulders with at some point? Because there are some organizations which are very strict, they make follow-ups.
Yes.
So maybe you can elaborate to us. Now, how can someone now choose the referees? Because yes, this has been need to be like someone you've worked with or under. How can this happen now?
Nick, that question, what does it tell you? It tells you that you have to be professional at the workplace.
Sure.
You can have differences, yes, with your boss, but let it remain professional, nothing personal.
Yeah.
So when you're employed, then ensure that your relationship with your boss is professional at all costs. So when you exit, they can say, okay, on the professional side, this is so-and-so. Okay. And then the other side, no one asks about the other side of you. So this thing of guys saying, oh, I'll give my, you can't, of course, use your family as your referee.
Yeah, of course.
If I'm going to recruit someone, you must give him a boss. You can't, if you give me a brother or someone who looks like a relative, I'll actually look at where is this individual working. Because if your referee is not your former boss, then I know there's an issue. That actually is a red flag. So your CV, you must have your former boss or someone who has supervised you before. You cannot run around it because it's a job you're applying for, and we need to know what's your performance on the job, because every employer wants someone who can deliver, not someone who will come and you're not coming to parade around. You're coming to deliver something, and you're being paid some money. So in terms of referees, and even in application, Nick, you remember one thing: when you apply for a job, there's nothing wrong having your ambassador within that organization. If there's someone you know, please let them know. I have actually given my CV, I have applied for that job, and if possible, share with them your CV. Let them speak well about yourself, about your capabilities. If you don't do that, and that's not canvassing. That's not canvassing. Canvassing is so different from someone actually putting a good word for you. Because they know you. Well, they know you better. They can actually project who the company is likely to have on board. And you may get a job because of that, other than just throwing CVs and then keeping quiet. And the other mistake that people do is they give the referees' names, but they don't let the referees know that actually I've used your credential in my CV.
Very important actually. So no one is shocked, like,
that how many, who do I have, who has used my credentials as me as a referee. So it is important to let Eric know that Eric's credentials are used in your CV, so that when I'm asked about how you deliver on the job or who you are, then I can give a good word for you. And of course, telling facts as well, because as a recruiter, I will also ask, what is the downside of this individual?
It's true that.
Yes.
It's true that. Anyway, let's talk about, in fact, before the resignation drama and everything, let's now talk about success has been achieved and you have been shortlisted for this interview. You've packaged yourself well. And some recruiters say that they look, your CV is there. They haven't actually put the face on this CV, but they look at the personality. It's so competitive. Now they're trying to look at the nitty-gritties of how you're presenting yourself, how you're dressed, how you look, your speech, communication. So maybe run us through that also.
Nick, the CV is only the key to the door. It opens the door for you. So what happens when you come into the sitting room is different. Is now your personality coming to life, because you're selling yourself. When you get in, how do you project yourself? When you speak, how do you speak? When you are asked questions, do you actually listen to the questions, or you're answering you're setting your own questions and answering them? Because it happens to so many people. They either come unprepared. How will you feel, Nick, as an employer? Then you have a candidate in front of you, but that candidate has no clue of what Switch TV is all about. They actually, they even tell you that Switch TV is a manufacturer.
By the way, interesting. Wow. Okay.
So in this case, it requires someone to prepare. What kind of research? I mean, right now, even very small phones, kabambes, they have internet then.
Yeah.
Why don't you just come through and get to know?
Yeah.
Do your research well, understand the organization.
Yeah.
If there's anything that you can get about the interviewers, just get to know them. Go there, be warm.
Okay.
You can't walk in and then look timid and you expect to get a job.
Yeah.
And if that job requires you to interact with the customers, actually tells your employer, you are not cut for the job. Communication skills. Okay. And of course, you have to explain yourself. And it's so sad. And I mean, this is a reality that there are a number of candidates who actually come for interviews, but they can hardly speak or in English all through.
Wow.
What do you expect of this individual at the workplace? What are we churning out of our campuses, of our universities and colleges? Someone who in between they have to throw in 10 Kiswahili words and 5 English words.
Wow.
How will we, because we have a cosmopolitan society,
sure.
How will they work with your own clientele? So that's a no-no. I mean, if it's the interviews in English and you're asked that you speak English. Consistency.
Yeah.
And there are jobs that can require you to speak Swahili.
Sure.
Then be sure that you're going to speak Swahili.
Yes. Interesting. Now, the variety, the recipe enough for you to come out and outshine everyone. Yeah, you need to get that package, communication, even the way you've presented yourself, physical attributes, your shirt. You know, some people, I don't know what happens, but you see, we are classified with OCD characters, people who are very, very maybe neat in their own way, people who are kind of average, and the other ones, my goodness, who are unkempt. They don't care. As long as they present themselves, that's it. Now, for the sake of these guys who come in unkempt, these guys who come in, they don't care about now how they look, if they've ironed their shirts, or maybe whatever the dress they have. How can you really maybe tell us about this? I'm very sure you've experienced some guys who come in maybe dreadlocks is stylish. Performance, execution, input is the in thing. But now, tell us about unkemptness and maybe unpreparedness in terms of now the physique.
Just even before I go to the other part of the question, dreadlocks is stylish, but it depends which industry.
Absolutely.
It depends. And for ladies, they have stylish dreadlocks. Then these dreadlocks, actually, you look at them, it's even, I think the ones that weave, it's called weave or something. Yes. Weave is also a dreadlock.
Is it
sort of?
Weave?
I don't know. So now, now if you look at a lady, if they have some dreadlocks and are well kept, that's okay. And what of a man?
Maybe you can just hold it right there.
Yes.
Yeah, we are just taking a short break, but when you come back now, we want to talk about how your physical attributes really determine how the HR will actually make a decision or not. Because now, as much as you're trying to impress, trust me, the way you look is very important. All that coming to you after a short break. Interesting. All right, welcome back to Morning Live. Yes, we're talking about how you can present yourself to your potential employer, and trust me, there's a lot to be done as far as your candidate is concerned. And now you've reached a point whereby you have been invited on the actual interview. Presentation, physical attributes, self-assessment. How have you done it? How are you willing maybe to impress your potential employers? And of course, Bwana Eric Ngala is in studio. He's telling us more about now, for you to succeed, the nitty-gritties you need to look into. Very, very careful. Now, we continue with physical attributes. Of course, you're talking about dreadlocks and weaves. I think weaves, the human hair and everything, they're not dreadlocks. No, clarification over here. But still, I hope men don't wear the weaves. But still, look at the industries. Of course, dreadlocks and everything. You remember some time back, there was an issue about a school child who was told to go back home. because he had dreadlocks. And there was so much up on social media about how she was treated actually. Now, our society is different. We're from different backgrounds, yes, we understand.
Yes, true.
But looking at the performance. Now, for you said dreadlocks for a different industry, not for some industries.
Yes.
Maybe elaborate us for us, maybe more on that.
Nick, it depends. I mean, there are employers who do not really care. They don't mind dreadlocks. But if you have that dreadlock, then it has to be kept.
Okay.
Not unkempt. And number two, if you're going for interview, even let's leave dreadlocks on the side, right? It's just one small aspect of your physical attributes. You have a lady with earrings hanging to their shoulder.
Wow.
And they're coming, an earring that almost looks like a drum on the ears. They're coming for interviews.
Pingu, eh?
Yeah. And very many bangles on your hand. I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect? And of course, when you have to dress like it, if you have to dress in a suit, please have a suit, a decent suit. There's almost like micro minis is a no-no. You must have a skirt that is reaching your knee length.
So the bigger picture,
yes, decency has to be there. You don't. If you're a man, how do you go without shaving? You have your beards all over. You have your hair. I mean, everything is standing out. In terms of your hair is not really well combed. If you have lots of hair, then comb it. You need to look at it in a different aspect. Like if you are the one sitting on the other side, how would you want the other person to evaluate you?
Now, your recommendation, sometimes they say, not even sometimes, it's the fact that the first impression really matters. The first few seconds. They always say 3 seconds. But I believe it's around 10 seconds. Because now, by the time someone starts to speak, that's when now you can actually judge everything. Now, what's your recommendation?
Nick, you're very wrong. In fact, the 3 seconds is better than the 10 seconds.
Is it?
Yes, because you walk through the door, the first thing I see the flash of your dress code. I see, and then, so regardless of what you're going to say, I'm already switched off. So you'll sit there, and that's why you find that the candidate that was before you had taken 30 minutes. You walk in, and then they say good morning and all that, out of courtesy, and then in 3 minutes you're out.
Interesting. Wow.
And by that time, you should almost know that you have failed the interview.
Wow.
Because there's nothing, there's no content.
There's no content, actually.
You've gone in and everyone is quiet. Only one person asks you a question.
Sometimes you always ask, maybe, do you have a question for us? And people are afraid to ask questions, thinking maybe they'll shoot themselves on the foot with these questions. Maybe you can give us more details about now that angle of asking questions.
You must have a question for your interviewers. They've interviewed you, they've asked you questions. I mean, get something to ask them. It is very important. And of course, that tells you something someone has not researched. You have anything to ask us? No. Or they only had one question or two questions, which already has been asked. So now they have no clue of how to be smart and ask a decent question. And of course, about the job. So, ask about the job, the expectations, and anything. Ask about the culture of the organization, for example.
Expectations. Now let's talk about the salary. Because now this is where people go wrong. You are a good candidate, but your quote goodness. I understand some companies have this standard pay. Whereby entry level, experience level. But there are people who come and maybe, I think for me also, I have my own stories, but still, maybe what can you tell us about the bargaining power now? They ask you, how much do you want? That really kills people, and it's a story I can tell you. People have failed over there big time. Maybe please tell us, how much do you want? How can someone maneuver through this question?
The question actually wants to determine whether you understand the industry. That level, how much are they being paid? So a candidate, for example, a new recruit, someone who has never worked, and the industry practice, they pay 35 or 40,000 Kenya shillings. This person comes ridiculously with a ridiculous amount of money, 100,000 Kenya shillings, because they know one person they hang out with who has been in the employment cycles for 3 years is earning 100,000 Kenya shillings. Just get to know your facts about pay in the market. What's the entry level? How much they pay? If you're a manager at a manager level, just get to know the amount, because underpricing is bad. Overpricing is bad. Just get the facts right.
Some employers also ask, they insist. When you say, for example, I'll work with what you give me. They say, no. How much do you want? That's a question they really insist. Now, from your end, you're saying
Yes.
someone needs to research more
Yes.
about now their pay grades.
Yes.
But still, it's a question that overquoting and underquoting is also kind of very dangerous.
Yes.
Maybe tell us, to a potential candidate, how should they know about now the figures being given to entry levels, maybe mid-level, or experienced actually? Yeah.
Nick, if I want to come to Switch TV, Switch TV is not the only TV station in Kenya.
Sure.
And I can reach out to a number of guys.
Yeah.
And if I'm dedicated to get to know the figures that are being paid at that level, I'll get it from any other TV station.
Okay.
So I ask around. Internet has everything.
Okay.
You can even walk anywhere. You can ask any HR practitioner. Just call and ask them, oh, by the way, I'm going for interviews. That's part of preparation.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm going at this level.
Okay.
How much do you think?
Okay.
Because I think anyone who is really seeking for a job, they have some friends somewhere.
Okay.
Utilize your network very well, get the figures. You won't get it right, but you will get somewhere which is an average salary that is being paid. Yeah.
Now, there's another question really beats people down, and it's just all about, tell us about yourself. Now, this is where people go really wrong about now trying to make sure they really talk about their home. Now, telling us about yourself, is it a matter of maybe you telling them about your career history, your education history, or maybe your personal situation, whereby I'm from Mombasa, I was born in Kilifi, for example. What's your recommendation for this now?
Nick, that question actually, they want to know a summary or a short bio of yourself.
Okay.
And it should not go more than 3 minutes.
Okay.
It's like having an elevator pitch.
Okay.
So 3 minutes, tell us about yourself.
Okay.
The interview already had your CV. They've scanned through.
Yeah.
Why go through your CV in detail?
Okay.
Remember, there are questions coming. So just give a brief about yourself.
Yeah.
Of course, give about your academic and professional background.
Okay.
What makes you feel that you fit the job? Then the rest, leave for the interviewers to ask you questions about what did you do in this place, and then we move to this other organization, or what else do they want to know about you. So don't go explaining the whole world, and including your aunties, who your auntie is, and the rest. It's not necessary for the job and for that moment. They just want to know the short info about yourself. Yes.
Now, including your primary school grade on your CV, including your high school grade on your CV, of course, those are things we have to pass through that.
Yeah.
But now, maybe you can elaborate for us, maybe, how can we now package ourselves in terms of now, including even primary school certificates, whereby you were maybe in a choir somewhere and you attended the national levels. At class 4, you want your employer, you're 35 years, maybe 21 years, you want your employer to know that you are a good choir master at class 4.
People want to fill the spaces. There are people who actually believe that the longer the CV is, the better it is.
The better it is.
Actually, the converse is true.
Wrong. Wow.
The shorter and brief it is, and you provide the right detail to the potential employer, the better it is for your CV. We've seen 20 pages CVs, but you ask yourself, do I have the time to go through this? And if you're not writing a book about yourself, if you want to write a book about yourself, then write a biography. Here, you are presenting yourself to a potential employer, and they don't have time because they're also going through tons of other CVs. So save their time, be brief, to the point, sell yourself. Period. I mean, whether you include the primary, secondary, and all that is neither here nor there. But ask yourself, is it a relevant fact to give at that point in time? If they ask you, where did you school in primary? Probably they have a reason why they're asking that question. In the CV, yes and no, but I won't put it in the CV.
As you run this up, there's a problem in terms of now, when you leave your previous organization, you've been working with the boss seamlessly for so many years, but now you want to leave for maybe they call it greener pasture. And now your boss says, goodness, there's no way you can leave without me actually just starting some sort of war with you. You brush shoulders at the end of the days, maybe you want to, your clearance form hasn't been cleared, maybe no signatures, just problematic exit. Now, to the bosses watching right now, to the supervisors watching right now, sometimes people really complain about the transition, not very smooth when you're leaving, but always smooth when you're in the institution. How can they now approach this? Because at some point, someone needs to leave and grow.
And Nick, it gets even worse if you're the top performer and you're leaving that employer. Some people take it personal. I think to the employers who are actually watching this show, we want to ask the employers that take it easy. It's all about the job. It is nothing personal. Yeah. Let the person transition well. In fact, wish them well. Probably they're going to be your good ambassadors out there. Okay. And you can have them back. Okay. Because we've seen people who leave, allow them to go. Absolutely. Get other knowledge, absolutely, experience, and then call them back. If you really feel that this individual is a resource, then first, treat them well when they're there. So when they exit, they be your good ambassadors. Okay. So that is a space where we've seen a lot of people suffer. They are just very good people, good relationship with the employers, but the moment they give their resignation letters, I think the devil in the employers just becomes chaotic. No, it becomes chaotic. So I think even you as an employer, give the person the space to work, create that relationship for the moment that you work with the individual. When they transition, just send the letter, accept their letter, and wish them well. In fact, ask, how can I help you? Yeah, that individual may come back instead of being wild. Finally, for a young man who's watching right now, I think you have two young man or a lady who's watching right now. I think you have a message for them as far as now packaging themselves to now impress the potential employer. What's your summary? Nick, my summary is treat yourself as a product that actually going to be launched in the market. Number one, packaging. Okay. Package yourself so well. Number two, look at the attributes of that job. Okay. What is the attribute and what is required by that employer? Okay. And of course, pricing, and use word of mouth. Yeah. Those are going to be your sponsors in the workplace if you have to get a job. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Eric Ngala, for coming to elaborate more about now how people can package themselves. Yes. And I'm sure guys have learned something. Trust me, it's never easy. So. It's never easy just to write like a